I have Christina Campos here today from Impactful Parent. We are going to discuss a fairly delicate situation today, right, Christina?
Yes.
We're tackling some pretty difficult issues with preventing depression, seeing the signs and symptoms of depression, and whether or not we can detect if kids are using drugs, teens and tweens. What do you want to say to parents right now during this pandemic about their kids being sad and if they're starting to see them being sad?
With behaviors, the behaviors represent some kind of feeling. They always represent some kind of feeling. So if you have an angry kid and they're mad and they're hitting people and they're getting in trouble at school, they don't want to be that way. They don't want to act like that. They really are just so emotional inside. They don't know how to control themselves and they don't know any other way. So it's about finding out, what is that root emotion? What is going on? Are you afraid of something?
Yeah.
Are you worried about something that's happening at school or at home? Or are you sad that you're not getting enough attention? And it's about the parents really having to dig deep to see, where is this coming from? Where's the behavior really stemming? And be an investigator.
What about the signs and symptoms for kids that are depressed are that they are alone? They're often in their own rooms, they're lazy, they don't have any energy. What other signs and symptoms should we be telling parents to watch for? Some physical signs and behavioral signs.
Yeah, there's going to be sleeping too much, sleeping too little. There's the signs of anxiety and depression and drug use are actually very similar.
Yeah, they all overlap. Yeah.
They do. There's a lot of overlap there. So, but in general, I mean, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for massive changes in behavior that just seem unusual. If they're really aloof one day and then the next day they're super high energy, you got to look at that a little bit more closely.
Let's talk about drug use. And you and I have both seen this in the schools. I can see the signs and symptoms physically. So for me, it's obvious though, if you're working in phys ed, you can see the child's losing weight or they can gain weight, but it's all about how that child started, right? You had to know them from the get-go, right? So we can see by their mood swings, whether or not they have energy to keep up in class. And one of the biggest thing is concentration. Can they focus? And it was amazing how the kids that I could just pin out, it's just a feeling and a vibe, and I would write it down, log it in my little notes and say, Johnny looks particularly aloof today. He didn't want to talk. He was flippant. Something's going on. So I take it and then I phone the parents. But really what I was actually observing was drug use. And he was actually going out in between the classes, smoking up and coming back. So
one of the things you mentioned, I just want to highlight because I think it's really important, is that you mentioned that you were writing it down and you were keeping track. That is huge, and more parents should be doing that. I know you were doing it on a more professional level and natural, but parents can do that too. They can completely keep a little journal and say, hey, today they were super high energy, and then the next day they were nothing. And the next day after that, I don't know if they were sleeping very well. And you start keeping those notes.
It becomes very obvious.
You can see patterns. It's amazing. And you can also see, and this is particularly really important to see patterns like, oh, I noticed that every time they go and visit Uncle Ned, this happens. You can see those patterns, which is that's huge, which you would not see if you were not literally writing it down and keeping track of it. Or maybe every time they go to this baseball practice, or, I don't want to blame Uncle Ned, but I mean, just saying, like, in general, you'll see patterns that way. And it could just be every Tuesday, but then you're like, okay, what do they do on Tuesday?
Then you'll start to see the pattern.
Right? And you start, again, being that investigative parent.
How do we help parents with kids who have started using drugs? What do we do? How do we help that parent? How do we guide them? And we know now that child is already using drugs. Now, how do we help that child?
The first thing you're going to do, in my opinion, is not freak out. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive because inside you're going to be freaking out. And I get it. You would absolutely be freaking out.
Yeah.
But outwardly, you're not going to freak out. And
Yeah.
that's because kids will not trust you if you're going to freak out on them.
Yeah.
So you need to
or
maintain
scold them either, right? You don't want to scold them.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to be a safe place for them to land.
Mhm.
They don't want to be addicted to drugs. And so they need help. They don't know how to tell you. And chances are they want to tell you for help, but they just don't know how because they're afraid.
Yeah.
They're scared. They're scared of what's going to happen if they stop drugs.
Yeah.
They're scared of what's going to happen if they keep doing drugs. They're scared of what you're going to do to them when you find out that they're taking drugs. So it really is key to maintain just that level-headed, okay, thank you for telling me.
Yep.
We're going to work with this together. We're going to do this together. And then the second thing I would suggest that they do is you figure out and ask them honestly, which drug are you taking? Because which drug you're taking actually says a lot about why they're taking the drug.
Yeah.
The same reason why anybody, adult or child, would take a drug typically are one of two things. It's either A, to get more energy so they can do more and be more, or two, to escape their life because something is going on that they don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay. And so just by knowing what kind of drug that they're into, that gives you, okay, so are they doing the A? They need to do more. They want to be that straight A student, and then they need more. They can't sleep. They have to do more. They got to get that A. They need to study. They need to do this. Or is it B? I'm trying to run away from something. I'm angry inside. I don't want to feel it anymore. I want to hide. That alone, that would be step 2. Let's find out why you're taking. Could it be that they're just experimenting and then got addicted? Absolutely, it could, but it's actually more unlikely. There's usually a deeper reason on why they're continuously using some kind of drug.
Yeah.
So that would be step 2. And then after that, now you have the reason. Now you can go get help from a healthcare professional. You can start working with them. You start making your child accountable for when they, when they're using, and trying to help them to break their habits. Putting them into some place that would obviously give them more support than maybe that you can, depending on what that drug is and how addicted they are. So parents need to know it is just like you said, not only devastating, but shocking what the amount of drugs that are out there. I actually do a drug program that with the Impactful Parent, and in there I describe like 18 popular drugs, something like that. Mm-hmm. And our parents are always like, 18? Yeah. I thought there was only like 5, and I'm like, no, there's like 18 different kinds of drugs out there. And people, the average parent's looking for those normal type of signs. Oh, smell of marijuana, an actual needle laying around.
Right? They're the highest.
A prescription drug.
Yeah.
Yeah. But really, there's so many more other signs that that could relate to that. I mean, cotton balls laying around are actually a sign. Also, wrappers, straws, tinfoil, little tiny baggies. They're about this big. For those of you seeing the video, they're about 1 inch by 1 inch.
I see them all around the schools.
Oh, yes. And parents don't realize that those are drugs. Those are signs of drug use. Yeah. They just see the straw in their kid's bedroom and they don't think much of it.
So I want to just repeat your last 3 sort of warnings to parents if you find out your child is using drugs. So you're saying that it's best to make sure that you don't freak out and you stay calm, and you basically tell them, we're going to do this and we're going to do this together. And the second thing is, we're going to find the right help because we want to know what drug you're using to get you the right help. And that does dictate sort of the course of action you're going to take, right? Like if you're doing weed versus cocaine, there's a big difference.
Huge.
How you're going to react. And then you have to stay with that child, and you have to dig in, and you have to spend time with them. And we have to spend more time with our kids to figure out what is going on with them in general, right? We're not talking to our kids enough. But I just wanted to say thank you. And it was nice meeting you today and getting this up and going. And we're going to hopefully maybe do this again.
I would love it. Thank you for having me, Larissa.
Yeah.